Thanks for staying with us. Just about 7 minutes before 7 o'clock. We go over to the Nature Isle on top of the hour 7 or there just about. Hi, good morning to our friends over in Bridgetown, Barbados. Already locked in. Let me tell you, the developments, the election developments, political developments over in Dominica is being followed across the Caribbean, across the Eastern Caribbean and the wider Caribbean. Observers and citizens of our region are monitoring closely what is unfolding in Dominica. The Prime Minister over there calling snap elections just about 2.5 years ahead of the constitutionally due date. The opposition over there, the main opposition party is the United Workers' Party over there, and they have asked, well, they have said that they are not participating, and they've asked all Dominican citizens to stand down from participating in this general election. Interesting days ahead. The Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt has said point blank that his administration will not tolerate what we saw on the streets of Roseau in 2019, where opposition factions led protests, marches, and blocked numerous streets. He's saying this time around that will not happen, and if it does happen, the current administration will deal with it with the full force of the law. So very interesting times here in the Eastern Caribbean. Political developments, it's been monitored across the Caribbean. We go over to DA country Dominica on top of the hour of 7 o'clock. Let's now share with you our financial tip for today, a segment that we put together to promote greater financial literacy. We want you to make more money and make greater use of the money that it is you make. Monica, she's standing by with today's financial tip.
And now for your financial tip. Stick to a budget. An important step to consider when trying to get ahead financially is budgeting. After all, how can you know where your money is going if you don't budget? How can you set spending and saving goals if you don't know where your money is going? You need to set up a budget, whether you make thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. This has been your financial tip.
Thank you, Monica. We'll have another financial tip tomorrow to end of the week's program, and be sure to join us. We get off at 6 and culminate the program on top of the hour of 9 o'clock. The new course to this course is right here. Stay with us. Next, we go over to the Nature Isle, Dominica.
Ooh la la! See what's new at Courts. We've got great deals on living and dining room sets, appliances, electronics, and smart devices, and more. Shop today with no cash using Courts Ready Finance, 3 to 48-month payment plans available. Shop in-store or online at shopcourts.com. Come see what's new and take advantage of these great deals only at Courts. Bringing value home. Conditions apply.
Get your clothes sparkling clean with whiter whites and brighter colors. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. Ultra concentrated formula gives more washes with brightening factors added to keep your clothes looking new. And with the added organic fabric softener, your clothes will be soft and fluffy. Joby antibacterial washing powder is also effective in stain removal for cleaner, brighter, softer clothes with the sweet scent of early spring morning. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. My family, my love, my Joby. Available at supermarkets island-wide. For orders, call 455-3076.
A young man from Bagatelle is dead. Calls on the public to not stigmatize his vehicular accidents along the Bexar Highway. Professor Shannon welcomes the scrutiny of its CIP. One man is in police custody following the shooting death of the wife of a police officer.
Look out for the midday news with Daniela Edwin on Hot 7 TV.
Mourning a loss? Hot 7 TV wants to help you celebrate the beautiful memory of your loved one with In Loving Memory, celebrating lives. Whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some memorable occasion, or the anniversary of the passing of the dearly departed, Hot 7 TV will create a moving video tribute of that special person, showing how much he or she meant to you. Treasured memories, unforgettable moments, Share them with the world and repeat the airing as often as you'd like. Help keep your loved one's memory alive forever in the minds and hearts of all who care. In loving memory, celebrating lives. Contact us at telephone number 452-6040 or email us at inlovingmemory@caribbeanhottv.com.
It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved Thomas Xavier, also known as Zion or Bolko, from French Rue Miku, who passed away at his mother's residence on Monday, November 14th, 2022. He was 61 years old. The funeral arrangements for the late Thomas Xavier, also known as Zion or Bolko, will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. His body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home, New Dock Road, Vieux Fort. May he rest in perfect peace. The death is announced of Rose Robinson, also known as Afam or Mariana of Opicor Vieux Fort, who passed away at the St. Jude Hospital on Friday, November 11th, 2022, at the age of 78 years. The funeral arrangements for the late Rose Robinson, also known as Afam or Mariana, will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. The body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home, New Dock Road, Vieux Fort. May she rest in perfect peace. It is with heavy hearts that we announce the death of Florence Nelson Alexander, proprietor of Ivy Accounting and Tax Services, and also a former employee of the Inland Revenue Department and Customs and Excise Department. He was better known as Toton of Banan Latok. He passed away on Saturday, November 5th, 2022, at the OKEU Hospital at the age of 58 years. Left to mourn are his sons, Ravi and Derek Alexander, his daughters, Zoya and Noya Alexander, and his life partner, Yavinia Jean-Baptiste, also known as Ivy. The funeral arrangements for the late Florence Nelson Alexander, better known as Toton of Banan Latok, will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. May he rest in peace. The death is announced of Wenceslas Amab, also known as Winnie, from Labrie, who passed away at the St. Jude Hospital on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, at the age of 67 years. The funeral arrangements for the late Wenceslas Amab, also known as Winnie, will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. The body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home, New Dock Road, Vieux Fort. May he rest in perfect peace. It is with deep sadness that we announce the death of Dalton Bertrand Dekai, better known as Captain or Shadowfax, originally from Carrier-le-Clery, but resided in Rivière-Mita, Moshi. He passed away at the OKEU Hospital on Friday, November 11th, 2022. He was 50 years old. He was employed with Carnival Sailing's boat cruises at the time of his passing. The funeral arrangements for the late Dalton Bertrand Dekai will be announced in a subsequent broadcast. The body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home with Bouteille Castries. May he rest in peace. It is with deep sadness that we announce the death of Raymond Linus Attel, also known as Master of Love of Delsa Chazelle. He passed away at the St. Jude's Hospital on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, at approximately 5:10 a.m. He was 86 years old. The funeral service for the late Raymond Linus Attel, also known as Master of Love of Delsa Chazelle, will be held at Our Lady of Lords Roman Catholic Church, Chazelle, on Monday, November 21st, 2022, at 3:30 p.m. Thereafter, his body will be interred at the Chazelle Cemetery. Transportation will be available from the house in Delsa Chazal to the funeral service. The body now lies in the professional care of Crick's Funeral Home, Riviera Chazal. May he rest in peace. The management and staff of Hot FM Communications would like to extend our deepest condolences to the grieving families.
Get your clothes sparkling clean with whiter whites and brighter colors. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. Ultra concentrated formula gives more washes with brightening factors added to keep your clothes looking new. And with the added organic fabric softener, your clothes will be soft and fluffy. Joby antibacterial washing powder is also effective in stain removal for cleaner, brighter, softer clothes with the sweet scent of early spring morning. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. My family, my love, my Joby. Available at supermarkets island-wide. For orders, call 455-3076.
Ooh la la! See what's new at Courts. We've got great deals on living and dining room sets, appliances, electronics, and smart devices, and more. Shop today with no cash using Courts Ready Finance, 3 to 48-month payment plans available. Shop in-store or online at shopcourts.com. Come see what's new and take advantage of these great deals only at Courts. Bringing value home. Conditions apply.
A young man from Bagatelle is dead. Calls on the public to not stigmatize his fatal accidents along the Bexon Highway leaves Clement Shannon welcomes the scrutiny of its CI. One man is in police custody following the shooting death of the wife of a police officer.
Look out for the midday news with Daniela Edwin on Hot 7 TV.
Mourning a loss? Hot 7 TV wants to help you celebrate the beautiful memory of your loved one with In Loving Memory, celebrating lives. Whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some memorable occasion, or the anniversary of the passing of the dearly departed, Hot 7 TV will create a moving video tribute of that special person, showing how much he or she meant to you. Treasured memories, unforgettable moments. Share them with the world and repeat the airing as often as you'd like. Help keep your loved one's memory alive forever in the minds and hearts of all who care. In Loving Memory, celebrating lives. Contact us at telephone number 452-6040 or email us at inlovingmemory@caribbeanhottv.com.
What's up, guys, and good morning. My name is O'Neil OJ Joseph, keyboard player for Morgan Heritage, and I'm asking you guys to check out Good Morning St. Lucia Vibes at Sunrise with Shannon Lebourne on weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Hot 7 TV. Check it out.
Welcome back to the platform on this Thursday, the eve of the weekend. Once again, hi to our friends over in Bridgetown, Barbados, already locked in the developments, political and election developments over in Dominica. Interest for citizens across the Caribbean. Good morning to Barbados, already tuned in, and hi to our friends in Rosa, Dominica as well. Good morning to Connie, who is up at Jolly Lane. Hi to Tony as well. Tony is in Tarish Pit, is it? No, Tony is in Gutter Village. And hi to our friends in Tarish Pit as well. Tarish Pit also referred to as Purple City. Good morning, Dominica. Let me just stick a pin here before I bring on my guest who is already on the Flow video platform. Our very first guest on this morning's program, focusing on the Dominica developments, was Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, Speaker Emerita, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight. However, she has cancelled at the last minute. We're told she is not satisfied, to put it frankly, with my other two scheduled guests. Apparently she was miscommunicated with, and she was not told that we would have the leader of the opposition and a concerned citizen, so she has opted out of the discussion this morning. Our intention was to balance the argument, balance the discourse as we normally do. We've had friend of the show, former government minister Artie Martin here. We've had political scientist Peter Wickham. So on this occasion we have Lennox Linton. We have another special guest who is already on. I'll introduce him shortly, and we will hoping to balance it off with Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, Speaker Emerita, but she's not coming on this morning. That's fine with us. We have a young man who is well equipped to fill any chair, and I move on now to him. He's already on the Flow WhatsApp platform. Mr. Clement Marsler is a former senator over in the Parliament of Dominica, and he is a concerned citizen. Young man, good morning. Thanks for agreeing to come on.
Good morning to your viewers and listeners. Sakapek, moi, c'est des tout barres bon avec.
Toujours bien pourtant, moun parler créole, nous savons, nous acceptons ici qu'à parler créole, pour Dominique qu'à parler créole, tout bonnement. So, merci à Chai, bonjour, bienvenue.
Merci à Chai aussi.
All right.
It's always good being here, and we're looking forward to a great discussion.
Absolutely. There's lots happening over in the Nature Isle Dominica. Quick turn of events. Before we go there, tell us about yourself. Who is Clement Marsler?
Well, I'm 38-year-old Dominican politician, environmental specialist, as well as an entrepreneur, project manager. But I'm one who really stand by the values and principles that have been instilled in me from a very early age. I am also one who is quite obdurate when it comes to standing in the gap for the people and ensuring that the well-being of our people is always represented. But most of all, I'm a father of a 9-year-old daughter who's always supportive of me and who I'm always proud of. So in a nutshell, that's me. I'm an easygoing person. When it comes to serious times, I will pull up my boots, but when it comes to relax and recline and have a discussion with the elderly, have a discussion with the young people, be there for individuals in time of need, that is what drives me. That is what most people know me for.
Yeah. A well-rounded Clement Marsler, if you ask me. Looks like a well-rounded young man. Let's move on. Lots to talk about. I'll go there next. A little Suicide pirate, if I want to call him that, have whispered that you may be contesting the leadership of the United Workers' Party, the main opposition in Dominica. Truth or not? What can you say about that?
Well, I doubt this is a power to do that. Our national bird is one which is quite reserved and quiet. That is one you would find well nested or settled in the top of the deep verdant forest that we have. Yeah. So for it to do so, it would be something special. Yeah. So, but yes, I have been nominated for such position. There are other nominees, and I'm just looking forward to the delegates conference, where the delegates would make the determination of whether or not I get the green light to further contribute to my country and my party.
Well, when that time comes, we will be sure to reconnect with you again to speak to your vision and plans for the organization. But let's play the wait and see and hold on for the delegates conference.
So we're already endorsing me then.
That's fine. Let's talk some of the political happenings now. November the 6th your Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit, who's been at the helm for about 18 years now, his Dominican Labour Party for about 22 years, calling a snap election. Last time you were at the polls was in 2019, and you were not expected to go back to the polls not until 2024. Your views on the current developments over in Dominica?
Well, it came out of many Dominicans as well. Already the ruling government enjoys or exploits a two-thirds majority, more than a two-thirds majority in Parliament, considering the economic downturn, considering what has been going on globally, taking into sharp focus as well the need for political stability in any country and how that stability can now dictate the overall inflow of investment, and then to go into an election where the reforms that were promised has not been implemented, and even on that, to be so insensitive in the time where the hurricane season, we're still in the hurricane season, and we have in the east flooding and landslides, and people's lives are being affected. One man had passed away in that time, and the most appropriate response to this was to call a snap election for what? For political benefit. It really is concerning. It's disheartening, and the mood on the ground is that a lot of Dominicans are still in shock. Those of us who are strong enough to stand up and speak about it are doing it, but there are a lot of people silently just can't really believe that is what is going on, and it's very, very concerning. For me, it's a very sad day, and I can hope that this can be turned around to the benefit of the country.
Yeah, supporters of the Prime Minister would say it's good political strategy, but it came as the country was dealing with a trough system. Many people lost their homes. Why do you think it was perhaps insensitive by him to call it at that particular time?
Well, political strategies good political strategy doesn't equate to economic development. In my mind, I think that the most important thing, and we as a people, a Caribbean people, we need to also consider that. We look at all the fanfare and pump that is associated with the political campaigns, but how many of them how many of us take away the message, focus on the policies? How many of us assess the individuals putting themselves up for public office? And then it then translates to our standard of living in our country. Our country, we're still at minimum wage of $4.05. And then one may say, good political strategy, yes, good political strategy, but at whose expense? At the end of the day, it's always the people who suffer. And I think we need to move away from those things. We need to start thinking about how is it that we are going to together, collectively, we move our country forward. So, for example, in that case, you want to catch an opposition blindsided, right? But guess what? It's the opposition that will look at the plans that you are prepared or the policies that you are prepared. Look how it's going to impact the populace, and be sure that they call for better. So when I am as an opposition senator ask that something be done better, who benefits? Everyone, regardless of what side of the aisle that you serve. And we need to think of that as holistically, as opposed to and that is one of the areas where democracy will always be attacked, not only at risk, because I am of the firm belief that democracy is always at risk. Is how many of us are willing to stand to guard of democracy? How many of us are willing to protect it? How many of us are ready to say, no, we can do better as a people? No, that political division cannot continue to exist. And maybe, yes, again, I come back to reiterate, yes, good political strategy, but let's look at the sensitivity in it. How did you consider those people? How is it that you are going to flatten the hopes, the minds, and even the aspirations of your young people by doing something which is quite deceptive? I would choose my country over politics every day, every time.
Yeah, and thanks to that. In just a bit, I'll question you to get an appreciation of what's the mood on the ground in Dominica from Goodwill all the way up to Mao and maybe across the Soufriere, from the ordinary citizen on the ground. We'll get your feedback on that in just a bit. But let me get your views on the election call. November the 6th was the date. The Prime Minister, a few hours before, he would have received a letter from former magistrate who was doing all the work with the electoral reform process. And hours after he received that letter, he called the general elections. Are you fearful that perhaps your Prime Minister was a bit worried on the direction that the country was heading, the proposed release of the constitutional reform report by Justice Dennis Byron, that he decided to preempt the presentation, so to speak, and call a general election?
And I agree with you on that, and then it brings back the whole question of political strategy and political maneuvers. Yes, I am of the view that we as the opposition had discussions with Mr. Byron. We had the Electoral Commission who was in constant engagement with Mr. Byron, and some of the recommendations were on par with where we want to be as a mature democracy, where we want to be as a forward-thinking people, and those reforms were well intended to ensure that Dominica's election is done in an appropriate way. We also have the recent opinion from the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is our senior appellate court, pointing out that the elections should not continue with similar things. This may sound cliche, but it's what we have to go on again. And even he, Mr. Skerritt, reckoned that it was a vexing issue. It is no longer a vexing issue because it would have not been because of his knowledge that those reforms would cause him to work harder and would definitely cost him an election. He may have just pushed that switch to ensure that he buys some more time. Some more time to work though, because we are 18 to 3 in the Parliament of Dominica, and still you are not able to move the country forward. And it's something of really selfishness, if I have to say it that way, and it doesn't really tell well for the country itself.
Yeah, Clement, allow me to use your words. You said that he hit the switch. In hitting that switch, do you think it was a slap in the face of Sir Dennis Byron, who was just about to prepare a report, having been paid in excess of $400,000 of your tax-paying money? Was it a slap in the face of Dennis Byron and in the face of democracy and all Dominicans to have promised electoral reforms, and at the verge of these reforms being tabled and being presented publicly, you hit that switch, according to you?
Well, I don't think it's a slap in the face, though. I think it's more than that, maybe an uppercut, a real hard punch in the face. Because I was thinking about the reputational risk that now Mr. Byron is now exposed to, and he as a real respectable person around the region and the world should really I would really empathize with him but that would only come if in the event that he comes out early and take control and speak out publicly on those issues, because if it's not done, then we all have to ask a question: is it a real true conspiracy? We need to understand the plans were delayed after delay after delay, even in consultation with us, and as soon as it came out, that comes out. But I would err on the side of caution, and I would say Mr. Byron is what he has professed to be over the years. I would now pass the blame on Mr. Skerritt, because he's so deceptive. I'm not sure that anybody could take any real truth from his utterances these days, and it is sad, but that's the current reality, and we can only hope that the region starts speaking out, because the only way the only thing which is necessary for evil to continue is that good men sit by and say nothing, as in the words of Edmund Burke.
I think we have to be fair, and you're all right. We have to be fair to Justice Byron, because his appointment and his task was clouded by COVID. We had 2 years of COVID. To be fair to him, he did not have that smooth highway of opportunity to do his work. And in our discussions with him, Clem, just hold on for me for a while. He has said that what he did was not just review the Constitution and make recommendations. In that time, he also spent significant time drafting the legislation. So he was not just be prepared to present a report. He was also presented with that report draft legislations for your parliament. Just to be fair to him. But with all what's happening now, I think you're absolutely right. Sooner than later, it would be fair to the people of Dominica first and all other observers across the Caribbean if Sir Dennis Byron were to come out and clarify a lot of these matters. The issue of constitutional electoral reform, what's your main gripe there? What do you think Dominica is most missing in the reform process?
I think is a clean and a registration list, a list of electors. Dominica, the current electoral, the current list has 76,000 registered voters.
You don't have that number of citizens on Dominica.
Dominica's current population. Dominican current population is estimated of 72,000. So how is it that the list of elected voters is much more than the population of the island? It assumes two things which are almost impossible. One, that every child which is born is of the age of 18, and Dominicans don't die. I know we have a high rate of centenarians per capita, but this is not really realistic. So this is what is one of my main concerns with that. The other one is that anyone could just walk in. So you have dead people on the list. I know family members who have died 20 odd years are still on the list, and we have sent in requests to the electoral office to get that list, get them off the list. They still appear on the list. Anyone could walk in and go into a polling station, recite a name, John Brown, and vote and cast a vote. The most that could happen is one of the agents object and say, you are not that person. The objection is written into the poll book, but the vote still cast. And this cannot be accepted in this law. And there are a lot of monies have in excess of 4 million have been spent for that reform process, where the equipment was purchased, and now I'm hearing that it has been sitting there so long that it become faulty, and we may have to consider purchasing new equipment for the development of voter ID cards. And in any mature democracy, any right-thinking citizen will understand that the system can be rigged. And it would not be fair for any political party right now to go into an election without those reforms.
Yeah, the picture that you just painted for us of your electoral process is a real scary one that leaves room for exploitation if that is in fact what exists. You don't have a voter ID, and you have more people on the voters list than what obtains for the population of the country. Very, very troubling picture that you just painted. What are Dominicans on the ground saying when you visit Jolly Lane and other parts of Goodwill, and when you go over to Soufriere and Mao? What's the response from the ordinary man to this snap election?
Well, I can also bring to sharp focus when I walk the streets of Pennville, Vickers, and Tibu, which were the people that I tried representing. Although they are pro-labor, they love me a lot. I just want to also reach out to them and say I'm there standing with them. A lot of them would come silently and say, boss, we need to get this done. Why didn't we put in that electoral reform? And I'm saying you are in the best position, and I want to remind Dominicans, we are in the best position to ensure that this happens, because there is that tendency to believe that those we have entrusted to represent us are the ones with the power. But no, the power always rely on the people, and we're asking Dominicans to call out, speak up, come out and break that fear that exists, that resident fear that exists. And let us really speak peacefully. Let us ensure that we can ask for those. But what we have seen, the people are calm, as Dominicans are very peaceful people. Yeah. And I'm concerned about the overall direction that the country will move from here in support.
Yeah. Over the last 22 years, observers would have noticed that the ruling party, the ruling Dominican Labour Party, has managed to take control of a number of state apparatus. And as you say, speaking to Dominicans, they talk to you, but they don't want to come out publicly in fear that they might be victimized. How has the regime been able to maintain such control that the Prime Minister publicly says Dominica is Skerritt's country?
Well, in the absence of reform again, where you have campaign financing issues or concerns, and also the use of public property as a campaigning tool. So, for example, the government uses the resources of the country to grant a home fair and well to those who are in need. But when that home is now held against you as that you must vote for me because I gave you a house, you must vote for me because I placed this road, you must vote for me because I send your child to school, or I give you you are 70-year-old and we gave you $300, which is as part of our safety programs. And make no mistake, there will always be those who are in need of that kind of security, even at that vulnerable age. But when it is used against you or weaponized against you and held above your head that you must come out to vote for me because I gave that to you, this is how incumbency is being abused and allow the government to really enjoy an unfair advantage over any political party who is campaigning.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Mr. Marsler. Again, let's open up our phone lines, 4500-777, the in-studio number. We're talking Dominica elections. Clement Marsler, former senator, former candidate of the United Workers' Party as well, and a concerned citizen. My guest is this hour. Your organization, the UWP, Clement, has said that it's standing down. It will not participate in this election. And you have asked citizens of Dominica to stand down as well. Are there any plans by the organization to hit that red switch and take to the streets and ensure that the voices and the concerns are heard loud and clear?
Well, this evening there is a massive gathering in the main town, Roseau, on the Bayfront, starting at 3 o'clock. We just have to encourage our individuals to come up and turn up in large numbers to those rallies and really stand in solidarity with each other and ensure that we call for a better Dominica, a better electoral process, and that's what our party has been about, and that is what will continue, the direction in which we will continue as we seek to serve honestly our people.
Yeah, it's a peaceful gathering this evening.
It will always be a peaceful gathering.
Okay.
There are plans of food to always, and then again, that's what I also want to step out and point out that I will always stand up and condemn any form of violence, be it physical violence and violence. But very seldom you find individuals coming to stamp out or condemn psychological violence. And our people have been plagued with this type of violence for a long time, and no one is speaking out about it. Why is it that the campaign is always to ridicule the opposition? Why is it that the campaign is always to put us in a bad light? And to what benefit is it to have individuals, your people, being conditioned to think that they are the worst set of people? And guess what? The country is divided straight down the middle, and we are stuck in an economic morass, and we're not moving forward. To what benefit is that? And we find when the physical violence come up as a response to the instigation, everyone wants to jump and condemn. But I think we need to start at the root cause and nip it from the bud.
Yeah. You optimistic that good sense will prevail and citizens of Dominica stand down from the election? 5 years, governance of the country is at stake here. Do you anticipate what we saw in 2019 where there is some unrest in the streets of Roseau and elsewhere because so much is now at stake for the citizens of Dominica?
But what I could call for, I want to take the opportunity to call for peace and good sense, and everyone remain calm on the island. We are a peaceful people. However, you also want to remind it it's the right to protest, and protest can take any form. A returning officer deciding to stay home, people at the electoral office deciding not to take part or not to work. These are protests as well. So the violence is no place for violence. You can't use a wrong to justify another wrong. However, I call on Dominicans to stand for the country.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Clement. The civil groups in Dominica, the trade unions, what are these movements saying? Where do they stand? Mr. Marsler is with us still?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, excellent. You're back on now.
Yeah. I'm saying they are doing their part, and everyone with a voice, every Dominican, every right-minded citizen with consciousness, we ask all of them to come out and let their voices be heard even louder towards that cause.
Yeah. Let's talk about the candidates of the governing party. Well, not the candidates, but his slate and his approach to this election on the 6th of December. 10 new candidates announced on the slate this time around. What does it say about the performance of the former members of his administration being sacked 3 years into their 5-year term?
Well, that is not the first time it has been done. The 2019 as well, there were 11 of them who were replaced. This time we're seeing a more youthful participation in that regard, where a lot of them are brought in at the expense of the older guard. It is again a political move. Mr. Skerritt has realized that he's getting of age, and his youthfulness has can no longer impact him in ways like before, and then he is really trying to ride on the backs of the young people to get him into that place, in my own assessment of it. And it's still begs about it. You can't put, should you put new wines in old bags and or old vats, it just can't work. So I think he does it as a reset, but I in my full assessment and discussion of the young people with the young people from all walks of life on our island, it should be a eject rather than a reset.
Yeah, I like how you put it. You can't put wine in the same old vases, but some people might tell you it depends on how you like your wine, Clement. But nice, nice one there. 10 new candidates he will present on the 6th as part of the election day apparatus. You hopeful that Dominicans will come out? If they don't, December the 6th will come. Your Prime Minister will go to the polls. What next for democracy in Dominica and the movement of the Commonwealth forward?
Well, I think if this happens, the international community should take particular note in that is what's going on in Dominica, and the pressure that should come if the good men rise and decide, better, Dominica deserves better. The government would have to call fresh elections sooner than we think. That is my whole assessment of it. And we, as Dominicans, we would be encouraging them to stop and think, especially to the president, that they can act and in a way to keep our country to place our country on a better trajectory, and to ensure that the lives of Dominicans continue to improve.
Yeah. Does your party have any interest in writing to the international community on this matter?
We have written many letters. And I'm not in the position to really divulge to who and where, but we are doing the best that we can with the limited resources that we have at hand at this time. We can only hope that they would cling on to our request and act expeditiously.
Yeah, let's take this discussion just beyond the shores of Dominica for a bit, because observers are monitoring a trend within the Caribbean region. It happened in up north in Jamaica with Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his Jamaica Labour Party calling a snap election and really taking the PNP there by surprise, controlling the majority again. In Barbados, the Prime Minister Mia Motley as well did the same with her Barbados Labour Party. And are you now seeing the same in your Commonwealth of Dominica if the Labour Party of Prime Minister's carrot? Are you observing a dangerous trend here in the Caribbean region where politicians continue to wield enough power to call elections as they please? Is there anything concerning there for you?
It is a great concern, but however, let's go back a little. It is within the ambits of the law that the Prime Minister has that power to do so. So then you are now where, if in this case it requires constitutional reform, and to come to what is happening now, we're seeing an affront on democracy, because if the opposition is caught with its pants down, as the saying is, there's grave concern, because the opposition is all of us. We are the ones who say, hey, your plans are good, but however, you could do better, or this one doesn't benefit Dominica. We would want you to revise and reschedule, reorganize that particular policy to fit us. So if the guard of democracy is a slip or an unfortunate position, how is it that it would be beneficial to a country? And again, we have known that governments tend to always want the opportunity to run roughshod over the people. And it is something that we as a mature people need to sit and discuss. We need to ensure that plans of each party are properly distilled, are properly digested by the people, and the people make the right choice. Calling a snap is really taking away the power of the people to really assess and select those they want to entrust their future into, and that is something that is counterproductive in my whole assessment of it. It may be politically savvy, but to what benefit? And then we always want to look at the advancement of our countries, or advancement of our nation, and ensuring that our region remains buoyant in times of serious adversities. We have seen people clinging on to power, but not clinging on to progress and ruling over decadence, as opposed to ruling over prosperity.
Clinging on to power, not clinging on to progress. Let me just take in one comment from one of our online contributors and then ask you the next question. Somebody saying that they hope Mr. Marsler wins the leadership of the party as a young man. Since you're saying you cannot put old wine in whatever, because presently the front runner for the leadership of the party that will take place on the 27th of November is a 60+ year old man. I'm not sure you have any feedback for that. I doubt Clement does.
I can only say it's not just young. It's not just being young. It's not just being young. Young is an attribute. Yes, it would, in politics it serves you well, but one must stop and look at the experience that is coupled with the personality and the attributes and the principles that I hold dear to. I am an honest person. I am somebody who always speak my mind. I am somebody who is trustworthy. I stand high on values of integrity, and as well, I have made a lifetime of work where where I've served in senior capacities for whether it be for the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I served on many boards. Currently, I am serving on the National Credit Union as a director, vice president of Dominica Cricket Association, a director of the Windwards Cricket Board, which is also contributing to cricket and cricket development in the sub-region as well. I'm an entrepreneur, and I also work as a project manager up to postgraduate level. So it's not just, I may be young, but there's a lot that is going I'm riding on as well.
Yeah. Given what you're seeing in your country now, is there benefit for democracy and for the region on the whole for us to have a set dates for the hosting of general elections?
Yes, that is one of the areas that would really help us as a smaller part, and as well, we're not speaking only of the existing opposition, but smaller parties more in democracy, the result towards democracy. So having a set date will allow individuals to mobilize resources for campaigns, because campaigns are not that cheap. As well, I want to stick a point in one of the reforms that Mr. Dennis Byron is also bringing forward is really trying to quantify the campaign and ensure that there is a cap on campaign financing, as it is perceived that as a sovereign state, you don't want outside influence to really impose on your country due to the fact that they are able to sponsor an electoral campaign for any particular party, and that is a very crucial aspect, because we have seen our campaign costs skyrocketing, and no one is stopping to ask what is the risk, the inherent risk of having that phenomenon occurring. And it is very important for us to realize that the big monies into campaign can really lead us to greater concerns and constraints, and at the end put us at an unfair position.
Yeah, you're getting good support online. Some more comments here, Clement. Somebody saying Mr. Marsler deserves a chance to be the leader of the opposition. And somebody also adds, yeah, Clement, good job. So a number of Dominicans apparently are tuned in and providing tremendous support for you this morning.
Thank you.
What are the domestic challenges like on the ground? Because your Prime Minister would say it's almost like milk and honey over in Dominica. You just had a massive return of the World Creole Music Festival. Things are all right, and people have money in their pockets. What's the domestic conditions like in your country?
Well, you have one major concern. Which money do they have in the pocket? Where is the money coming from? I just spoke to you about the minimum wage. We're all aware of the economic downturn based on COVID and the war in Russia and Ukraine. Sorry. When you look at the economic climate, it's tough times for everybody. So if you are aware where's the money, well, you maybe could point a lot of Dominicans down that area, because as well, we have seen a lot for the last festival, Creole Music Festival, which is one of our premier programs, and that brings a lot of visitors to our shows. We saw a lot of tickets being distributed to patrons, ordinary to Dominicans, to ensure that they could attend the shows. So the purchasing power is not there. We see a lot of money being given to individuals so that they could go through just enough so that they could return for more. That is not a sign of a really thriving economy. That is a sign of someone who is using their influence to buy over what so-called political law, and it's not in the right direction. And I just hope that Dominicans could stand up and realize that they are being taken advantage of.
Yeah. Quick one on the recently concluded festival, Clement. How concerned are you that an international act can receive a bill of 1.1 million US and your national bands in Dominica don't get such a handsome payout at all?
And that is one, if you follow my presentations in Parliament, that is one of the areas that I continue to ask that we seriously look into, because our festivals are supported and really marketed by our local bands. And being a musician myself, it would be of great concern to me. Because, for example, Colton T, and I really want to take that opportunity to really commend this young man. His performances are up to par. His quality, his lyrics are up to par, and I have not seen any real bias towards helping the breakthrough and get onto the world stage. And as a country, we need to be able to show those clear path for our young people. Right now, music should be part of our export strategy. And I am not saying, I haven't seen any conscious and concerted effort at doing such, and we can only ask for better for our musicians. Yeah. Yes, the international artists would come at a very top price, but our people, unless we can show that we have the ability to push our people up to that level, there's always going to be a trading balance in our festival, where the international community or the international acts get the greater piece of the pie. We continue to contribute to capital flight and not really invest significantly into the lives of our young people.
Just a few more domestic matters for me, and then because we're slowly winding down, and Mr. Linton is already standing by, I'm told by my producers. Talk to me about CIP in Dominica, because your Prime Minister touts the CIP receipt, saying that he's recently built you a new hospital, and he has built some good-looking homes, if we have to take the pictures online for what they represent on the ground.
This is one of the issues that we continue to ask for transparency. We continue to ask whether these resources are being adequately managed. Yes, they are used to develop for the benefit of the country, but we also ask for how is it being used? Is it being used in the right way? We haven't seen, since the implementation of the program, the development of manufacturing. We haven't seen the improvement in the salaries. We haven't seen the improvement in the minimum wage. We haven't seen any improvement in what you consider as the holistic development of the Dominican person as a being. We may play or give them kudos for trying to build certain health centers in certain areas, but the most important part of it, that is really the superficial part of it. We need to go in depth. How is it that these resources, this country resources, are being used for the advancement of our people, and why is it so open? We need to have that level of transparency to ensure that the Dominica is getting the best from its resources. We need to look at the return on those investments and how it will improve the life of the ordinary man. That money can't continue to circulate in the top echelons of our society. It needs to trickle down to the grassroots, and not just trickle down in a form of giving you a building. And then the next question is, where do I get a meal? We need to be able to empower our people that they in turn can do, are empowered to do the things that they can do for themselves, not just dependent on a social or safety net by the government, but they can move forward into prosperity. And these are some of the main concerns that we have. And finally, the other concern is that the revenues are, over the last couple of years, have been on the decline, and we have seen certain challenges that have been placed after after further restrictions on the program. So how are we now as a nation left to go through these ominous times, and then considering that we're not even sure how the efficacy of the whole program itself as it relates to the development of the ordinary man.
CIP still, Clement, because you've been in the business of citizenship by investment long before us here in St. Lucia. When you look at where majority of your applicants are coming from, the downward turn that you just pointed to in the receipts, the money, the revenue coming into CIP, and even the use of those funds in your country, what lessons are there for us in St. Lucia and other countries in the Caribbean who are just now tapping into the CIP program?
Firstly, it needs to be managed well. It needs to be managed and be a transparent process, because there can be attendant benefits. However, if it's not done where right at the first instance you are opening yourself to a lot that you may not be able to control, and it's really meting out your citizenship as a sovereign nation to foreigners. Then you find there's that question of land acquisition where the local man is restricted to a small lot, but those with the larger buying power are able to purchase the prime land, and there's the risk of running your citizens into second to the second tier of your society, and being the ones who are original or born up in this country. So it is something that you have to manage with very cautious steps, and then. I wouldn't recommend you just jumping into it blindly.
Mm-hmm. Let me hold the discussion regionally for a bit, Clement, as we wind down. Over the years, 20 or so years, we've seen a number of Caribbean regional institutions really lose their footing, and we have digressed in the region with our performance in sports and other areas. The current crop of leaders within the Caribbean not monitoring the situation or not doing the right thing for the Caribbean, you think? Because we seem to be going back as opposed to forward progressing.
In sports?
In sports, and the number of institutions as well across the Caribbean. Look at aviation, civil aviation. Look at the whole push for regional integration that we've talked about for 20 plus years. We haven't been able to really go beyond the rhetoric.
You see, that is one of my major concerns with most our leaders in the region. They look at the system as fragments. If you are looking at it in that way, then there's no way you're going to improve the entire system. It's just like a guy. It is comparable to a young man who decides he's going to turbocharge his car. You may go faster, but have aspects of it. It is a whole system, and you have to look at it in a holistic way. So, for example, in sports, there's a tendency that sports in many of the Caribbean islands are still considered as a recreational activity. Sports is a multi-million business, and we need to be able to put further investments into those areas. Because guess what? When a young man can channel his energies into something positive, you expect to find a decrease in the crime rate in your country. If people are given equal opportunities, if there's a greater emphasis on technical and vocational skills, if you have those steady plans designed to really empower the ordinary people, to give the young people an opportunity to really express themselves freely and contribute to our society, we won't be in the situation that we have found ourselves. For example, we have LIAC. We all can feel the squeeze in regional travel, and regional business is impacted because of that vacuum that has been created because of LIAC's absence. And we need, as a region, to consider as well that those particular areas within our society are so very important in ensuring that the connection remains between our people. We may have tours where relationships are formed between different people who may not have ordinarily met each other at any point in time. Sports can bring that as well. The ease of travel can really ensure that our people remain connected, our values remain strong, and our culture is protected for the future.
Two more questions from me just before those. Some more feedback online. Good job, my brother Clement, Peter Thomas, who is over in Dominica as well. Somebody's also saying, great job, Clement. That's Sandra Green. Good morning, Sandra, and everyone across Dominica. I can listen to Clement all day. He's focused, highlighting the issues, giving recommendations. That's refreshing. Dominica, that is the leadership you all should gravitate to. Somebody, Duke is hailing you up. Duke Severa is hailing you up. Hail up, Clement. Two more questions from me, and then we close the discussion. I'm sure we'll have you back in the not too distant future. Something just tells me. Your Prime Minister was recently here in St. Lucia at the Conference of Delegates of the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party, encouraging the comrades there to protect the victory. For us here in St. Lucia, our little 238 square miles, based on what you're seeing happening in your Dominica, the close relationship between the two prime ministers, Dominica and St. Lucia, how concerned should our citizens here on St. Lucia be?
Well, I think he just dealt a major blow to himself. If the St. Lucians were entrusting of his word to really help your prime minister, right now, when you look at his actions, I'm certain that a lot of them are now questioning, really, should I follow that advice or is it wrong advice? With the track record of the prime minister, I'm not too sure how wise it would be to really take that advice. However, your country, I want to commend you all. I've been noticing for a while, and even in interaction with one of your ministers, the Minister of Sports, the young man himself, your country has been devoid of fear of changing our government. Once it doesn't work for you, you are able and you're willing to go and to see what's the new horizon, what are the new horizon, and that is a sign of a real true democracy and the strength, and why St. Lucia has been able to become one of the largest economies in the OECS. That is kudos. I really want to commend you all for being bold, being strong, and really power lies within your people and not the people in power.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Clement. I know many St. Lucians appreciate that as well. I'll give you the last 60 seconds, young man, to speak to the Dominican people. Your Prime Minister said he's going to the polls December the 6th. Today, the United Workers' Party and other interests will gather in Roseau. Your final opportunity to engage the good citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica.
I just want to remind our people that we are peaceful people. We are our brothers' keepers. We are the ones who stand collectively. Even in the case of, I think one thing we should recall, that case of Konisha 18, where everyone in the island came in to unify for one purpose, which was finding this young lady. This is a similar approach that I would really ask our people to take. Be calm, ensure that there is peace, and we come together to ask for justice. And that is one of the main areas I want to remind every conscious Caribbean person, that we all need to stand up and ask for better for our sister country, or my country, right, rather, to ensure that we remain on the course of development, we remain on the right focus, and that we can see that the light is at the end of the tunnel, and that gloomy and ominous days that we are currently experiencing, and I'm hoping that the better days will come shortly, and that at the end of it we all will reap the bountiful harvest.
Clement, thanks. That's a nice way to end. In 2019, our Deputy Prime Minister in Roseau said that the unrest happening in Dominica at the time was planned in St. Lucia. Someone is intimating now that the political strategy you see happening in Dominica was planned here in St. Lucia as well. Just thought I stick that in here. You represented yourself well. I want to thank you for coming on this morning. Breath of fresh air, if you ask me, from my humble opinion. You, to me, reflect the image of the new Prime Minister over in Grenada, and his vibes and movement as well. That's Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell. With that, Suseb Bird is telling me again that we'll have you back in the not too distant future.
But before I go, I just want to put in one slight correction. I am the reflection of what the people have instilled in me, what they have owned me to be, so I can't be representing myself. I always represent the people, no matter what it is. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Well said, Clement, and we'll talk again soon. Former Senator, concerned citizen, member of the United Workers' Party. He is tipped, by the way, to contest the leadership of the United Workers' Party. He's getting good support from fellow Dominicans who have followed the broadcast online. We say hi to each and every one of you. Duke Sevre, good morning. Good morning to Bernadette Shillingford as well, who's saying great leadership. And Josie Sevre as well is on there. Ms. Bannis, thank you for all Dominicans who've tuned in. Lennox Linton comes on next to continue the discussion. Again, we did plan to balance the arguments, so we had on our schedule this morning the Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, Speaker Emerita, but she cancelled at the last minute. That's fine with us, and we'll continue the discussion in just a bit with the political leader of the United Workers' Party over in Dominica, Mr. Lennox Linton. The phone lines remain open. Big shouts to Tony. Tony is a spirit man in Dominica. He is in Goodwill, Dominica, but I'm trying to get the community in particular. Just below Tarish Pit, Clement, help me out. The community just below Tarish Pit and below Jolly Lane. What's that community known as?
This is Gota.
Gota, yeah, Gota. Okay. Excellent. Thanks for coming on again. We'll talk soon. Let's take a quick commercial break. Our time just about 5 minutes across St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean. When we come back, Lennox Linton will be my very special guest.
Always wanted a motorcycle, but they've been too expensive. I pass in on my way to work, and then boom, I see courts have motorcycles outside. I'm excited. I get up one day, I go down, I spoke to this guy. I think his name was Sheena, this short, chubby little guy, you know. I purchased 2 bikes so far. It was the 150 SL and the 250 Dragon. This blue, beautiful AKT TT Dragon, this is my baby. I call her Becky. She gives me the best ride ever. My name is Storyboy Nick, and I live to ride my AKT.
Get your clothes sparkling clean with whiter whites and brighter colors. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. Ultra concentrated formula gives more washes with brightening factors added to keep your clothes looking new. And with the added organic fabric softener, your clothes will be soft and fluffy. Joby antibacterial washing powder is also effective in stain removal for cleaner, brighter, softer clothes with the sweet scent of early spring morning. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. My family, my love, my Joby. Available at supermarkets island-wide. For orders, call 455-3076.
A young man from Bagatelle is dead. Calls on the public to not stigmatize his vehicular accidents along the Bexar Highway leaves tremendous Shannon welcomes the scrutiny of its CI. One man is in police custody following the shooting death of the wife of a police officer.
Look out for the midday news with Daniela Edwin on Hot 7 TV.
Mourning a loss? Hot 7 TV wants to help you celebrate the beautiful memory of your loved one with In Loving Memory, celebrating lives. Whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some memorable occasion, or the anniversary of the passing of the dearly departed, Hot 7 TV will create a moving video tribute of that special person, showing how much he or she meant to you. Treasured memories, unforgettable moments. Share them with the world and repeat the airing as often as you'd like. Help keep your loved one's memory alive forever in the minds and hearts of all who care. In Loving Memory, celebrating lives. Contact us at telephone number 452-6040 or email us at inlovingmemory@caribbeanhottv.com.
I travel quite a lot and would sometimes be out of the country for weeks at a time. The good news is that because of the internet and modern technology, I can always stay in touch with what's happening in St. Lucia. And when I do, my go-to site is Good Morning St. Lucia, Vibes at Sunrise with Shannon Lebourne. Up-to-date news, good discussion, interesting guests, and a great host. What more could anyone ask for? My name is Richard Peterkin, and I endorse this message.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for staying with us on this Thursday. We remain on the ground in Roseau, Dominica, just for a bit as that country prepares for general elections announced by the Prime Minister on the 6th of December. The United Workers' Party, the main opposition over there, have said categorically that they're standing down and will not participate in this general election. According to the party's leadership, it is not a Dominica election, it is a Roosevelt-Skerrit election. No better individual at this time to share with us what's happening on the ground and to discuss the political maneuverings over in the Commonwealth of Dominica than the political leader of the main opposition United Workers' Party, Mr. Lennox Linton. Mr. Linton, good morning. Thanks for waking up early and agreeing to join us here in St. Lucia.
Good morning. Good morning, St. Lucia. How are you doing?
We're not too bad. Hope all is well in your domain at this time.
Well, just first of all, I'm not the political leader of the United Workers' Party. I'm the former political leader.
Former political leader.
I am the leader of the parliamentary opposition.
Leader of the parliamentary opposition. Thanks for that clarification, sir. Now you have been at the helm of the UWP for a number of years, before recently stepping aside. Over the years, what are some of the troubling issues you have monitored and witnessed with the election process over in Dominica?
First of all, you asked a question in the promotion for this interview, whether democracy is at risk in Dominica or whether democracy is under threat. So I wanted to comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Because, as we start, because I think that democracy is in an interesting state in Dominica. It really, to my mind, has been hijacked, and it needs to be rescued. Because when we talk democracy, we talk about a system of living our lives that has four key elements in it. One, there is in a democracy a system for choosing and replacing government of the people, by the people, for the people, through free and fair elections that have the hallmark of integrity. Number two, there is active participation of people in politics and in civic life. Number three, there is protection of human rights and citizens. And fourthly, there is a rule of law in which the laws apply to everybody equally. Do we have that in Dominica? Number one, we don't have a system in Dominica for choosing in a free and fair manner, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Over the years, we have seen the legalities, the legal structure surrounding elections in Dominica totally compromised, so that the ruling party, the Dominica Labour Party, has been able to engage a number of illegalities and irregularities in order to have election results go in its favor. And we saw that in 2009, we saw that in 2014, we saw that in 2019. We challenged the results of the election in 2009 unsuccessfully. There was a challenge from 3 private individuals that brought 15 members of the Dominica Labour Party who contested the 2014 elections before the court on the criminal charge of cheating in the elections. And then in 2019, we filed petitions against the results in 10 of the constituencies. Those petitions were struck out by the judge at first instance. We appealed to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. They determined that because it was not a final decision of the judge at first instance, then it could not be appealed. And the Caribbean Court of Justice agreed with that ruling of the CCJ. So, having looked at what was before it, and having presided over the treating matter in elections from 2014, the CCJ felt compelled to give some guidance on the future for the electoral process in Dominica. And it said that there remain areas of grave concern over how the process for these 2019 elections was conducted, and future elections in Dominica ought not to proceed with these or similar taints. The taints are poisons to the process. The taints are the corrupting influences that prevent it from delivering free and fair elections with integrity. So based on the evidence of the past two election cycles, we do not have a system that we can rely on for choosing and replacing government of the people, by the people, for the people, which is where the reform consultation comes in with Sir Dennis Byron, that was engaged by this administration, Roosevelt Skerritt, in 2020, right after the 2019 elections, after he felt, I guess, so guilty that he had led the country into or misled the country into another election without reform. He then indicated that Sir Dennis Byron would be engaged to look at all the recommendations that we have had on electoral reform, to consult with the people, and to provide guidance, his recommendations now on what the reform should look like. It was the view of Sir Dennis Byron in consultation with the Electoral Commission that his recommendations in this reform exercise would be reduced to amendments to the two critical pieces of election legislation in Dominica, the House of Assembly Elections Act and the Registration of Electors Act. So rather than present a whole long list of recommendations, he would reduce those recommendations to amendments to the legislation so that they could take effect there. He advised the government, he advised us in opposition on the 6th of November by letter that these recommendations had the consensus of the Electoral Commission, and so he was ready to present them to us, discuss them with us, before issuing phase 1 of his report that would focus on the amendments to the Registration of Electors Act. On that very day that Sir Dennis sent his letter, the Prime Minister announced that there was going to be election, which means we're going to have another election now in 2022 without the reforms that the Independent Electoral Commission promised since 2008. Now, what was so immoral about this is that 3 days before, on the occasion of National Day celebrations, on the occasion of the celebration of our 44th anniversary of independence, the Prime Minister addressed the nation. And in that address to the nation, he spoke about the electoral reform consultancy of Sir Dennis Byron and indicated that he was looking forward to receiving and implementing the recommendations, the reform recommendations. 3 days later, when he has received correspondence from Sir Dennis outlining how we go forward, he will present his report. The Parliament can take it to it can be taken to Parliament in December to be enacted by January, the first House of the Registration of Electors Act, and then the recommendations for reform of the House of Assembly Elections Act could go to Parliament by April to be enacted in May of this year. All of this would be a full 2 years before the constitutional due date of the next election. And Mr. Skerritt rings the bell for the election because everybody says and agrees that he has the constitutional discretion so to do. But the Constitution that gives him the discretion to call the election at any time doesn't give him the responsibility to run the election. It passes that responsibility for the conduct of elections to the Electoral Commission. And so, in operating our system in the public interest, there has to be some sort of connect between the Prime Minister, who has the discretion to call elections, and the Electoral Commission that has the responsibility to run it. Because what we have now is a situation where we contend that the Prime Minister has called an election which he knows the Independent Electoral Commission is not ready to conduct. And it's not ready to conduct because the Prime Minister and the Electoral Commission have committed that the process for election in Dominica will be reformed. There will be changes to it. The taints will be removed so that we have a platform for free and fair elections. Now, keep in mind, what the Prime Minister did in terms of the Dennis Byron report was not just a promise, you know. It was a commitment that brought state resources into the picture, because Sir Dennis Byron was paid for the consultancy $450,000 plus an additional $200,000 for legal drafting services to reduce those recommendations of the reform consultancy to new election laws. And when you look at this, what you see is a squalid betrayal of the trust of the people, which goes very much to one of the key elements of democracy that we talked about, which is the system for choosing and replacing government of the people, by the people, for the people, through free and fair elections. We don't have that, number one. Number two, in terms of the democracy, is active participation by the people in the politics and the civic life of the country. Dominicans live in fear. They're afraid to speak. They're afraid to talk. Why? Because they will fall out of favor with the ruling party that has control of the resources and can decide whether they live or die, whether they breathe or whether they swim or they float. And there's that fear in Dominica, which prevents people from active participation in the politics and in the civic life of the country. So that's number two key element of democracy that we don't have in Dominica. Then you have the third element, protection of human rights for all citizens. I have been dragged before the court for walking in the capital city of Roseau in April of this year. In a land where the Constitution gives me, as an individual, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of movement from point A to point B in the country. And I am charged, along with others, for walking in the city of Roseau because the police have decided that we did not have permission for a, what they call it, a procession, a public procession. We were walking, a few of us were walking. And I'm also before the court for incitement, charges of incitement, because I made some comments where I freely expressed myself on the state of democracy in Dominica, the state of governance, and the responsibility of the ruling party for the sorry state of affairs in the country back in 2017. So, as someone who witnessed a fellow member of parliament of the United Workers' Party in Dominica kidnapped from a vehicle in his constituency, where we were traveling one Saturday afternoon a couple of years ago, and hauled away to the police station. And today, no charge has been filed against him because he was doing nothing wrong. I was with him. He was in his constituency. We were driving in the vehicle. We stopped in the vicinity of the residence of the Prime Minister. And because we were in the residence, in the area of the residence of the Prime Minister, and there was something going on there that caught our attention, that we stopped to look at, police pulled him out of the vehicle. He was not on the road. He was not interfering with anybody. They pulled him out of the vehicle and took him away. Up to this day, no charges have been filed against him. So the question now is, what are his rights to move freely, even in his constituency that he represents in the Parliament of Dominica? We cannot claim, therefore, that there is protection of the human rights of the citizens of Dominica when some of us are treated in that manner. Our rights have been set aside, cast aside, because we do not support the ruling party. And then this question of rule of law, in which laws and procedures apply equally to all. Another personal example, just recently, the police took action against somebody who made a Facebook post threatening the life of the Prime Minister. They have charged the individual. The individual is out on $30,000 bail. But in 2019, a minister of government, a sitting minister of government, openly threatened my life, called for me to disappear. And to date, the police have done absolutely nothing. There have been other threats on my life as well. Paid mercenaries from Britain visited my home in a criminal trespass in 2019, the election year. A complaint was made to the police. All of the evidence of the trespass was passed to them. They have done nothing about these two British nationals, funded by monies from the sale of Dominican passports, who visited my home in a criminal trespass, in order to implicate me in high crimes and misdemeanors.
Just hold on for me, Mr. Linton. When you look at closely what you just described, the 2019 invasion of your personal property and no response by the police, but the police moving to charge a citizen who made disparaging remarks on social media against the Prime Minister. That, coupled with the April charge against you for walking in the capital, and the incident within the constituency of an opposition parliamentarian. When you look at all of these happenings, it appears that Dominica is losing its stature as a democratic state.
The democracy in Dominica has been hijacked by the ruling party of Dominica, and Dominica has to find a way of rescuing its democracy, of saving our country, getting back our democracy, because right now it really and truly, in a real way, does not exist. It's been hijacked. This for the convenience of the ruling party, and I don't think that was the intention.
Yeah, it would be interesting, some of your recommendations how Dominica can release itself from that stranglehold that you describe as a hijack move. But let's go back. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go back, so if you may, to the action that you call immoral. On the 3rd of November, announcing that he's looking forward to the report on electoral reform, receiving his letter on the 6th, 3 days after, calling a snap election, even without receiving the report and making a move to reform the process. What could have concerned your Prime Minister so much within that short space of time that he hit that switch so quickly?
Let's start with what the Prime Minister said. The Prime Minister, remember, heads the party that has 18 seats in the Parliament of 21. So we have 3 seats, he has 18. The Prime Minister says that he wants a national reset. This election, more than 2 years before the constitutional due date, is necessary in the Prime Minister's mind, and he communicates that, because he needs a national reset. And that national reset is going to allow him, as he has done, to get rid of 10 of his sitting members of Parliament. 10 of them out of 18. He has 18 sitting members of Parliament. He's getting rid of 10 of them within 3 years. And he wants to have a new team to face the challenges of governance post-COVID. But he hails his team as the ones who broke the back of the COVID pandemic in Dominica, successfully wrestled it to the ground. And then in the same breath, he's telling you those very individuals,
They need a reset.
10 of those very individuals have no place in the governance of the country post-COVID. I don't think that makes sense to anybody.
So quick question there for me. What does it say to the performance of the 10 who were sacked 2 years ahead of 3 years into their tenure? They were given 5 years by the people. They've been sacked 3 years into that. What does it say about their performance and even your Prime Minister's selection of candidates and appointment of ministers? Because he just hit a reset in 2019.
Yes. He had a reset in 2019, and he wants another reset 3 years later for the reasons I mentioned. But I don't think it says anything about the competence or the capabilities of these ministers. I think it says a lot about the personal preferences of the Prime Minister, who is allowed to run his party like a dictator. Because this is a party that has not had any conference of delegates of the party as political parties have for 9 years. The last delegates convention of the Dominican Labour Party was in 2013. So for all I became leader of the United Workers' Party, political leader, in 2013, September 2013. Mm-hmm. So that for all of the years, the 9 years that I've been leader of the United Workers' Party, the Dominican Labour Party has not held a single delegates conference. So the Prime Minister has this arrangement in his party where he can do what he wants. He can tell 10 members of his parliamentary team, you have to step down, and nobody is allowed to say anything. Everybody steps down, and who is ordered to step up by him is step up. There's only one departure from that in this 2022, where the Mr. Skerritt had his mind on somebody to replace the sitting member of parliament in the Roseau South constituency. So the individual was selected. He is the former, or I think maybe outgoing general manager of the First Caribbean International Bank in Dominica. That was Mr. Skerritt's choice to run in the Roseau South constituency. The young lady who was in that constituency, won it for the Labour Party in 2019, said, no, I'm not moving. And she called on her supporters within the party, and she made some noises in the constituency and asked her loyal soldiers to bully the individual that Mr. Skerritt had chosen to replace her because she was not ready to leave, and bully him to let him know that she, Shakira Lockhart, is the parliamentary representative for Roseau South. Apparently the gentleman experienced some discomfort and backed down, and Mr. Skerritt had to agree to back off and leave the MP from 2019 as the candidate for the 2022, for his 2022 elections. So that was the sole departure from everybody accepting what Mr. Skerritt says and does and just going along with it. We are told that the facilitator is money, that people get paid to step down, that they get paid to step up, and in some cases they get good jobs. There are some people who have stepped down who are in line now for ambassadorial positions overseas, whether it's at the UN or the British High Commission or the Washington engagement, or maybe even Beijing in China. There are options for them, and everybody has gone away quietly, while the new team of relatively unknown people are contesting the election, are involved as candidates for the election on December the 6th. So I just feel that we are in a situation in Dominica that is untenable. Yesterday, I heard there was something floating around our social media spaces that Army officials, Army personnel from Barbados were arriving in Dominica, had begun to arrive, or were to arrive either today or tomorrow, or maybe they came in yesterday, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not confirming this. I'm simply stating what has been in our social media spaces in the past 24 hours. And to the extent that that is so, remember we had an incident back in 2019 where the RSS dispatched a contingent of soldiers to Dominica. They say to help keep the peace. They ended up tear gassing sleeping people in the west coast village of Salisbury, and overall intimidating voters who were getting ready for an election on the 6th of December 2019. I have a problem with the interference of regional leaders through their institutions of that nature in the internal affairs of Dominica. There is no state of emergency in Dominica at this time. There is no crisis of protest action that police are unable to deal with, and so there is no reason for any security force, be it army or be it police, from any CARICOM country to be in Dominica at this time. And to the extent that Barbados has people here, I'm asking the Prime Minister of Barbados to recall them.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you went there, Mr. Linton, because that's where I was going next. The regional ramifications, all what's happening in Dominica now. 2019, the RSS was sent into Roseau and other parts of the country to stabilize things there. Based on the domestic picture that you would have painted, and the previous guest did the same, the domestic picture on the ground in Roseau and across Dominica, based on the CCJ's recommendation that another election should not be held in the Commonwealth without the reforms implemented, we don't hear anything from Caribbean leaders.
Nothing.
You have a gentleman like yourself saying that democracy is being hijacked. What is wrong with Caribbean leadership? People seem comfortable in their own little domain. Why are they not saying anything? Or are they so well connected and all in this together?
Well, what it looks like to us on the outside is that a club is in operation, and the members of the club look out for each other with no regard for what is happening with the people, especially in the case of Dominica. Because I'll tell you something, these reforms that we are fighting for and have been struggling for close to 2 decades, every other CARICOM country has them, the basic reforms. Which other CARICOM country is voting without ID cards? Which other Caribbean country doesn't have a procedure for sanitizing its voters list?
Yeah.
We have a voters list of 75,000 people in a population of less than 70,000. And when you look at those realities, when you look at what we're fighting for, when you look at what we are duty bound to demonstrate for, it is totally unconscionable for CARICOM leaders to be sending in troops to quell demonstrations of people against oppression from their government that is so patently obvious and wrong. So this is an important time for Dominica, because political parties that behave in the way that the Dominican Labour Party is behaving only have one thing in mind, ownership, control of the people, the resources, and the resources, the wealth, and the institutions of the country for their personal gain. And we have a situation in Dominica where significant amounts of the resources of Dominica at the 44th anniversary of independence are under foreign control. Now, these are resources that have come from the sale of Dominican citizenship. And I cite for you the example of 2016 to 2020. We raised $5.4 billion $5,400 million from the sale of citizenships to 23,794 persons in other parts of the world, in distant lands. 23,794 citizens for $5.4 billion. 5,400 million. Of that amount, for the 4-year period, only 1.2 billion or 1,200 million came into the treasury of Dominica for the use of the people of Dominica.
From your information, from your information, where is that 4-point-something billion that's unaccounted for?
The 4-point-something billion is unaccounted for in accounts that are under the control of the Prime Minister and his friends overseas. and while that is happening, people are suffering, people are struggling in Dominica. The government refused to give a stimulus package of assistance to people in the battling COVID-19 pandemic. The government has nothing to offer the people at this time of food shortages and rising prices occasioned by the war, occasioned by the aftermath of the supply chain disruption in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. And we have all of this money sitting overseas under foreign control of friends of the Prime Minister. I don't know any other Caribbean country that is in a similar situation, or any other Caribbean country where that could have happened without massive protest action for the resignation of the entire cabinet of ministers that has put the country in this situation. So that when we, with legitimate reasons to protest, go to the streets, the Caribbean leaders who pay no attention to our plight have no business sending any troops into Dominica to say they want to keep the peace or anything of that sort. There can be no peace without justice. And they must pay attention to our justice issues if they want to have any role in sending people to help keep the peace.
Just engage me a bit more, because I think it speaks to a deeper issue. They don't say anything over the injustices that your people in Dominica face, and you pointed to several examples. What does it say about themselves as leaders, going to OECS meetings with a gentleman who promises people reforms to the process over and over, but not delivering on those reforms? Engaging a gentleman like that, who we appreciate preempted the presentation of a report by Sir Dennis Byron in calling a snappy election. What does it say about the Mia Motleys, the Philip Pierres, and the other leaders around the Caribbean who are silent on issues of importance to other fellow Caribbean citizens?
It simply says that they like what he's doing, they approve of what he's doing, and they would like to be what he is in Dominica. They would like to be in their countries as well. Because I think, regardless of what their intentions are, he's a little bit ahead of the game in terms of establishing, through so-called democracy, a full-blown tyranny and dictatorship in Dominica. And they like to see that for themselves.
We know the history. Go ahead.
So you do not hear anything at all from any leader, even those who sent troops into Dominica through the RSS in 2019, have had nothing to say about the CCJ admonition that there should be no elections in Dominica without reforms, without removing the taints to the electoral process. No Caribbean leader that was involved in the RSS action in Dominica prior to the 2019 election has had anything to say about the CCJ guidance with respect to the 2019 elections. And that says something about them. It says that their preference is, their default is to be just like him and to do just like him, if the people of their countries would allow them the chance to do that.
The United Workers' Party in Dominica has said that it will not participate in the upcoming general elections. Overnight, we're hearing of some political factions indicating their willingness to participate. Why do you think it's necessary for the people of Dominica as well to stand down and not partake?
Well, what we have said is that the people of Dominica should stand down from this election because it's not about them. The election that is about the people of Dominica is due late 2024, early 2025. That is the time frame for that election, by which time the election of the people of Dominica will be conducted through a process that is not tainted, a process that is reformed so that the compromising influences to free and fair elections are removed. That is the legitimate expectation of the people. And to the extent that they have been denied that yet again, the people have no business in this election, and they should stay away from it. Now, that's just us, one political party in Dominica, because it is not our political party alone by itself that the Prime Minister has taken on with this action. The Prime Minister's relentless attack on the electoral process, the Prime Minister's hijacking of that process for his own benefit, is not an issue for the United Workers' Party alone. It's an issue for all of us in Dominica, because it is all right to choose a government that is being taken away or has been hijacked away from us. So the nation must respond. Our response is, well, we are going to stay away from the election, but we're going to continue to push for these reforms, and we're going to continue to push for elections on this that should take place on this cycle, because this election, we don't recognize it. It's not a legitimate election. We do not recognize it. And so we would like, as much as possible, persons to stay away from obtaining nomination. We would like, as much as possible, people not to participate in the election. And even if it means the government, they claim the government by default after nomination day because nobody else opposes them, that's okay, because as far as we're concerned, we don't consider this to be a legitimate election, and we don't consider that the Prime Minister has or his team has the moral authority to run Dominica as a result of that illegitimate election, and we will be advocating accordingly in Dominica, around the Caribbean, the rest of the world, so that this government to emerge will be seen for what it is, a rogue administration that doesn't play by the rules, that bends the rules wherever it needs to in its favor, and is committed to ensuring that the people will not have the right to elect their own government by majority votes of the people, by the people, for the people, that they will have that right unto themselves through illegalities, irregularities, and a rigged electoral process that serves them and them alone. The pushback against that is important for the salvation of our democracy, and that is why we stand. We'll be having a national public meeting in the capital city later today, 3 o'clock this afternoon, to deal with those issues, and to bring the people of Dominica into a common understanding of the collective responsibility to act that we share at this moment. The collective responsibility to act to save our democracy in this time of crisis.
We will spotlight and highlight the 3 o'clock engagement before we conclude. But let's talk a few more matters here. Outside of more RSS support into Roseau, I'm not sure that you will get anything happening across the Caribbean towards your cause. What's the role of the international community, and how do you intend to engage there?
Well, the international community should have reasons to be concerned about what is happening in Dominica. If we go back to what I just told you about the significant sums, the 4.2 billion, just that is outside of the country, being under the control of foreign friends of the Prime Minister from the sale of Dominican citizenships. There is a lot going on there that the international community should be concerned about, especially with regard to the legitimate movement of money and the financing of unsavory activities around the world. And of course, the question of the citizens, the persons who are receiving citizenship, especially those who have in their possession our diplomatic passports, are guaranteed with those diplomatic passports seamless movement across borders in the international community, doing their thing. Alison Madueke, who the Nigerian government has moved on to seize significant assets that she held, significant monies and properties around the world that they have claimed were stolen from the people of Nigeria. She was the holder of a Dominica diplomatic passport, as was Francesco Corallo, as was Ngilap Seng, as was Alireza Monfared.
Your Prime Minister, Mr. Lennox, has found himself being introduced to a good few of these suspicious individuals, if you
these dodgy diplomats who, for a variety of reasons, find themselves in trouble with the law in the jurisdictions where they operate. And here they are operating with
immunity,
our diplomatic passport that allows them seamless movement across borders in the international community. It's a huge problem, and there is reason for the rest of the world, the international community, to be paying close attention to what happens here, because there has to be a reason why you could go to such lengths to deny the people free and fair elections, which can only be because you want to be the government forever and ever. What are you afraid about losing government? What is the fear about losing government? Think of the number of times in St. Lucia government has changed in the last 20 years. Do you believe that the people of St. Lucia are suffering any more than those in Dominica? St. Lucia is doing much better economically than Dominica. A lot more people in St. Lucia are employed and are accumulating wealth for themselves and so on. So is Antigua, so is St. Kitts. Dominica, with all of the resources that we have from the sale of citizenships in the last 5-10 years, we are not seeing the economic uplift benefit from it. We see some fancy buildings that go up in the name of citizenship by investment resources, some fancy looking apartments and so on. But at the end of the day, this significant amount of money has done nothing for people in facilitating them to earn their own money and to grow their wealth and to responsibly and in a very, very, very good way build their families, send their children to school, extend themselves in the universe. We have this basic human thing that we just want to be who we want to be, as individuals. We want to live life. And what we find with this business of government, less in some countries, more in other countries, the government ends up as a stumbling block in the way of in the way of people earning their own money and being their own people and having their own thoughts and spending their own money, living lives with the freedom their constitutions guarantee for them. The government of Dominica has emerged as a major stumbling block in the way of that, and to the extent that the government wants to continue, the ruling party wants to continue that without being kicked out of office, it has decided it will take control of the electoral process so that nobody else has a chance.
Yeah. I'm not sure, Mr. Linton, how well your chess moves are, but engage me for a bit. Let's play some chess and try to determine the Prime Minister's next political move. He's going to the polls on the 6th of December, no doubt about that. He's also said that he has less time left in politics than what he has served, indicating that he is on his way out of elective politics. I know you know Gade, but try to predict his next political move. There's some observers who say that he's paving that path for himself to the seat of presidency, what to you would be his next likely move?
That's impossible to predict. The Prime Minister the Prime Minister knows one thing. He wants protection from being prosecuted for the things he has done. And one way of securing that protection is to remain in office, whether it's in the office of the Prime Minister or whether it's in office of the President. He can't afford to lose office at this point because of what will come after. So everything the Prime Minister does is about that self-preservation right now. And so at one point in 2021, it looked as though he was going to move on and make way for former Ambassador Vince Henderson to take over the party, take over the leadership of the country. But Vince Henderson came in the by-election in 2021, and it appears has just gone quiet ever since. It was said that the Prime Minister in those circumstances would have made his way to the presidency, where he would continue to benefit from immunity from prosecution, so on. But then he has come now with this national reset, and he seems to have offered someone else the presidency. So one of the 10 people who have agreed to step down will most likely emerge as president of Dominica sometime next year, because the term of the current president ends in October. But it may come well before that for other reasons, and the person seems to have been well set up and is being prepared to take over as president, while the Prime Minister himself says he has another 2.5 years. The 2.5 years he has, or he says he has, is the 2.5 years that are on the clock for the next next election. So why couldn't he just bow out, spend the next 2.5 years grooming whoever the successor would be, and then bow out, do not lead the party into the next election that is constitutionally due in May of 2025. Instead, he wants 5 more years for him to groom a successor so that he can disappear in 2.5 years. Does that make any sense? It is difficult to predict the behavior of somebody like that, because you want to start off believing that it is driven by logic, but it is not. The only thing in the Prime Minister's head is self-preservation, and it blows with the wind.
Yeah. We're winding down now, Mr. Linton. Your message to our citizens here in St. Lucia. Your Prime Minister has a very tight-knit relationship with our Prime Minister as well, and he has called on the troops of the ruling party here to protect the victory. How concerned, based on what's happening in your Dominica, should our St. Lucians be?
Well, I don't know how tight-knit the relationship of the Prime Minister is with the Honorable Philip Pear outside of politics. I know Philip Pear since before he entered politics. We are close friends from way back when. Spent a lot of time with him in St. Lucia. We have, as a matter of fact, I was one of the first persons he called way back when he was considering entering the politics of the St. Lucia Labour Party. So this is a person I know very well, and I know that politics changes people. When you're in political office and you're Prime Minister, then you have the boys club or the boys and girls club that you have certain commitments to. But Philip Pear has never been somebody that I consider to be committed to,
hijacking democracy.
I wouldn't consider Philip Pear to be a hijacker of democracy or somebody who is that way inclined.
Yes.
But of course, he could surprise me. I just wanted to let you know that I know the gentleman very well.
Yes.
He has been a girlfriend for many years, to the point where some people thought we were brothers at one point.
Yeah. Very diplomatic response. I didn't expect you to step on the toes of your old friend, not at all, Mr. Linton. But to our citizens.
What do you know and can share with me? Because obviously you seem to know something that I don't know.
I know that they are comfortable enough that he was here recently, as recent as a month ago, and he vociferously called on the troops of the Labour Party to protect the victory. So they have a good working relationship. I'm not saying that it goes beyond that.
I am not denying, or I'm not standing in the way of that. I just wanted to let you know that this is a gentleman I know well as well.
Thank you.
On not politics, not in politics, just as friends and one St. Lucia and the Dominican brother.
Thank you. Quickly, based on what's happening in Dominica, the hijacking of democracy, Barbados snap elections, Andrew Holness did the same in Jamaica. Should the citizens of St. Lucia share any concern?
Yes, of course they should, because there's a monkey see, monkey do dynamic that appears to be at work. Mia Motley called a snap election. There is the situation where Mia Motley's political advisor is also Roosevelt Skerritt's political advisor. So this thing to snap elections may have come from the political advisor, having regard to how well it succeeded for Mia Motley in Barbados.
Is that the good gentleman at Cadres?
Which one?
The good gentleman at Cadres, the political scientist?
No. That's somebody else. I'm talking specifically about Hartley Henry. Hartley Henry's political advisor, Mia Motley, and he's also political advisor to Roosevelt Skerritt in Dominica, has been for a number of years. So it seems that the advice going around that succeeds for one, others would like to take it as well. So don't be surprised if the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, who is a Labour Party Prime Minister, may see some sense in what happened with Skerritt in Dominica and pop the gun early, as we say. Next time around. So St. Lucians, should St. Lucians should look for that. That's a possibility. It's the behaviors of the leaders in this region that we're looking at, and of course, to the extent that they feel that they can benefit from what they see others doing, you expect that they would want to do that too. So,
And lastly from you, so how can Dominicans begin to free up themselves from that stranglehold of a hijacked democracy that you painted earlier? Picture that you painted earlier.
Well, they have to start taking on the institutions that are standing in the way of that. You have the police force, for example, that has operated in the last 10 years or so more like a goon squad of the Prime Minister than a police force protecting lives and property and the rule of law in Dominica and enforcing the rule of law in Dominica. They have concerned themselves more with being able to expertise in policing meetings of the parliamentary opposition and other opposition parties than they are with fighting crime and keeping the peace. As we say in Dominica, that is where they're strong. They're strong in policing opposition events and harassing opposition politicians and opposition supporters. So there has to be a way that people take on the institutions of that nature and let them know, you are serving the nation of Dominica. You're not serving any one man or any individual political party. We live under a constitution that must be respected. We have certain rights that constitution guarantees, and the institutions of state have a role in ensuring that the rights of citizens under the constitution and as Christians of good conscience in the country are protected and preserved. We start there, but we must. The first thing for the people of Dominica is to emerge from this paralysis of fear that we have. We are fearful people. We fear coming out in the streets to demonstrate because the Prime Minister will send his police officers to shoot us or to intimidate us in some way. So that fear is paralyzing a lot of us, and we need to emerge from that, because we are not going to rescue this democracy from the hijacked state that it is in without active participation and involvement of citizens. The oppressor is not going to hand you back the privileges he has taken from you and are benefiting from. So the starting point, we must conquer our fear. and be prepared to confront that which oppresses us and takes us away from the life of freedom and democracy that we have all signed on to and we want with every breath that we take, with every step that we make.
From all indications, that movement begins today at 3 o'clock on the Bayfront in Roseau. We look forward. We're unable to carry it live, but we can do a link up on social media. Had we have previous knowledge here, we would have tried to establish a link up. But we still have some time before the 6th of December, no doubt.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for the invite. This was a pleasure, privilege, and I wish you well. Good morning, St. Lucia looks like it is making a significant contribution to the education of the nation state and the advancement of the civilization in St. Lucia. Thank you very much, and God bless you always.
Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Linton, and we look forward to engaging you at the next available opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lennox Linton, the leader of the parliamentary opposition in Dominica, is not the leader of the opposition United Workers' Party, but he is the leader of the parliamentary opposition. My special guest on this edition of the program, talking all election developments over in the Nature Isle. Interesting times. Jenny Darwin, good morning. Also hi to Laureen Benoit, Josie Stephen, and everyone on the Facebook Live who is over in Dominica. Let me say again, hi to Connie, hi to Alfred up in Purple City. Also big shout out to Fodo in Tarish Pit, Purple City as well. Good morning to Albert and Kathleen. Kathleen is in is it Gotha? Kathleen is in Gotha. Tony, I shouted you earlier. So big shouts to you as well. Enjoying his campaign. Tony is a scary boy, and he says he's not moving. But interesting developments in the Commonwealth of Dominica. St. Lucia, thanks for joining us. We'll be back again, God willing, tomorrow with another exciting, informative, and educational program. Justin will rise at 6 and we go up until 9 o'clock. On behalf of all of us here, good morning, St. Lucia. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye for now.